On the agenda tonight, I'm going to be having a look and a listen to Rory Gallagher back in 1982 performing Bad Penny. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So this is another one of those where I'm having a look at Rory Gallagher, and Rory's videos unfortunately do get blocked on YouTube where the audio is concerned. So the videos in the description below, as always, that's what I'm going to be watching and referring to in terms of the techniques and what Rory's just laying down on that fretboard, and I'll attempt to demonstrate it and get as close as possible, but it's always going to be an impossible task when you're talking about players at this level who are so about the feel and just their personality coming through the guitar, but we will do our best. So I'm going to jump into the video. Obviously, with copyrights, you won't be able to hear it, but then I'll jump in and we'll get stuck into it. Okay, so with this intro, we've got a lot going on. We start out just with the muted strumming going on from Rory, but also listen to the crowd. This is something that Rory was known for, getting the crowd involved and getting so much participation. They're clapping along, you can hear that. But when we get into the guitar, we're going to be in D minor or your D5 position, because going all the way up to that high E string isn't required, and we probably won't need that high E string if you want to play the riff exactly the same way that Rory does, because we have this, and that's a D moving over, and that's going to be a D minor if you want to play the full shape, but I'm playing a D5. You can go as far as the octave as well, but you're not hearing my high E string there. Then into an F, and then we have this C, which is hammering on the second fret with your second finger to get that in there. And then we have that little third fret on the A string with the second finger, and if you want to play the D with your first finger and third finger, that will leave your second finger free to play that part of the riff, because if you're playing the whole chord, you might have to stretch over. It might be a little bit more difficult if you've got smaller hands or just keeping it organized. You don't really hear the top end of the chord here from Rory, so you don't have to worry too much about that high E string. So sticking that together, and another thing to mention quickly about the right hand, don't worry about leaning into this and playing it with an aggressive downstroke approach, because that's how it's being played here. So we've got this. That kind of thing. And you could hear how I was being aggressive there. Don't worry about hitting another string or one more string than you're intending to. It's all about just playing it with that feel. And when you are playing the riff on that C, you'll have to make sure that your third finger is arched over so that you don't lean on it, because if you lean on that D string with your third finger, we're not going to hear the riff. So you want to have that. And again, on that bit, you'll just have to make sure that you aim for and hit your A string to get that part of the riff in there. So when we then move into the solo section, the intro solo, we're getting serious here. We're going up to the 10th fret on our guitars because we're in D minor, and that's where you will find minor pentatonic shape 1. And we jump straight in with this. And even that first phrase is impressive. We've got this, that, and there is so much technique in there because of the way that Rory does the bends. He does pre-bends, and to slow it down, we get this, which means he's not going and bending up to the note. He's going to the note before picking it. So we go like that, and that's actually a pre-bend as well, like that. So he's just dotting in these techniques and doing the pre-bends. Obviously, you've got to know exactly where to go in order to get that, because if I went and I went too high, it's not going to sound very good. You've got to know where that bend has to go to before, and you've got to know where these notes are and exactly how far to bend that string before you get there. So a lot of technique, a lot of practice required in order to do that. But of course, Rory was a top player, so he's got all of this stuff down. And he just glides through those phrases. He then, once we've got this, we've got these little trills, and something that I remember reading about Slash, who said that he took a lot of his playing from Rory, especially with these little trills and runs. That kind of thing. So as we descend down, we've got this little trill, as I said, but then we go further down the shape, and we've got a little bit of the natural minor scale here, and it is throughout this whole song. So that's going to be the Aeolian mode if you're talking about modes, but he's taking this minor scale, because we're in D minor, he's spending a lot of time on those natural minor notes. Really cool sound. So once you've got this, we've got that kind of thing in the intro. So with those trills, we're just going between those two notes, and that's going to be the 9th fret and the 10th fret, first and second finger on that G string, like that. You can see my little finger coming over there just to supply that note on the 12th fret of the D string in the minor pentatonic shape. So we've got that. And I think he's just descending all the way down to that A. And then he's got total control of vibrato. He does that really wide, just controlled the whole time, and then the, like that. So loads of technique in this intro. You know instantly that he's a top player within just a few seconds of listening to his lead work, and you get that with top players. You can tell instantly when they've got control of everything and they're just expressing themselves through their guitar, and that is certainly what we've got here. Getting into the first bit of lead before all of the really complicated stuff, we've still got a lot of technique going on, because we have this like that, and you could hear how, and it sounds like Rory is keeping that high E string going, and we're talking about the 8th fret here on the high E, so that when we're playing the intro, this here, you can still hear that high E string with it, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Rory's going to be using hybrid picking here on the right hand, so it means that he's got this like that. So what I was doing there is using my pick to pick the B string, but then my second finger to pluck the high E string, which means you hear both of the strings at exactly the same time, rather than having that millisecond delay between strumming it like that. So that's how I think Rory's doing it, and it does look like his second finger is doing that motion, so it sounds like that as well, that the two notes are being played at exactly the same time. And don't worry about being super clean with this. Like I said, it's all about the expression and the feel of it, and Rory isn't playing this with real care and staying still. He's putting on a show. That's what he was all about, but he still has the technical ability to be able to play this really well, and if he was playing it too clean, it wouldn't have the expression in there. So don't worry about kind of keeping everything really still and trying to nail it all perfectly. Just play it with a little bit of caution to the wind, and then you'll start getting into the right kind of feel. So once we've played through that second time, we've got that kind of thing. It's not exactly what Rory's playing because I haven't been through it with a fine-tooth comb, but it's that kind of vibe, and especially when we're throwing in that natural minor scale in there, really cool sound that Rory goes to a lot in this song and in this live performance. But once you've done that, you can then maybe take a bit of volume off if you want to, but Rory is clearly now getting more into rhythm because he's singing now, so the extra little bits like the little riff in there, you don't really need that. He's just taking a lot out of the guitar because when that lead vocal comes in, you want everything else to just drop down dynamically so you can hear the vocal, and that's exactly what we get here. Interestingly, just here in the first verse, you'll see Rory playing the rhythm. And he's moving up the fretboard to his bar chord positions, and it looks like he's just playing power chords here, but he might have that second finger in there for the... And then he goes back to... So he's just decided to move up the fretboard there, and it doesn't really matter, it's all the same chords, but you can have a mess around with that. If you want to play it exactly like Rory, then you can move your hand up as well. By the way, listen out for Jerry McAvoy on bass here. He does have a little bit of a bass solo later on, but he is so solid. I mean, the rhythm section here is so solid throughout, but we've also got that addition of keys and the organ that you can hear in the background. Just that sound is so nice to have underneath the lead solos, because with a three-piece, as Rory was generally, he will go off into a lead solo and it'll be just him, which is great because he had the technique in order to fill in the sound while he was playing lead guitar, whereas having the keys in there as well means it gives him a little bit more free license to not have to focus as much on trying to fill in as much sound as he normally would do, so he can let loose a little bit more on lead guitar, not having to worry about getting root notes of chords in there. So for example, if he's playing a lead and he's going... He doesn't have to worry about going back to that root note and filling out the sound because he knows that he's got the bass, but he's got keys in there as well, which will be playing your D minor, F, C, D. So that's all going off in the background, which means that he can break off into those lines like that. We've now got into another little lead section, and we've got the same notes being played here, but now Rory's just moved down the fretboard. So it means that we've got this, that kind of thing. And this is where he's playing the intro riff. So it's going to be our extended shape, minor pentatonic extended, with the natural minor scale thrown in there. Just going... It makes such a difference to the overall sound of that whole shape. Really moves it away from that standard pentatonic sound. So the technique is exactly the same there. So when he's going like that, so these little trills in there, exactly the same principle. A little bit of a stretch here if you want to do exactly the same thing, which is getting to that next note in that natural minor scale. By stretching it then gives you access to that little trill, pull off, and then playing from then on. So, like that. And as he moves down, he's now just moving down that extended pentatonic shape. Kind of like that. But we've got some really cool lines going off here from Rory. There was another one that I just quickly stopped there. That kind of thing. He's also just dancing on the edge of throwing in pinched harmonics, which he is going to be doing a little bit later on, and I'll watch the video a little bit more, but I'll probably then show you guys the part that I'm talking about with the pinched harmonics with that right hand. Okay, so we've again got a little bit of pre-bend action here going on. That kind of thing. Playing the note rather than ascending and hearing the bend. Just picking the note, doing the bend without picking it, getting to the top of the bend and picking it. So really cool sound. And we've now got this. He's now bending up and pulling off to that first string on the 10th fret, the B string. So, and if I'm gonna put my bridge pickup on, looks like that's what Rory's got. In order to get these pinched harmonics, that kind of thing. We haven't got super dirty tones here, so hearing the pinched harmonics is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it's similar tone-wise to what Rory's got here. It is really subtle. You're going to have to listen out for it carefully, the difference between the normal bend and then that little pinched harmonic in there. It's just got a little hint of it. We're not going full harmonic here. You can still hear a little bit of that original string note ringing out, but there's a little bit of that, like half and half, really. So you hear the original note and half of that pinched harmonic with the right hand, and that's just about catching the string just as you've hit it to stop it vibrating. And when you don't have a lot of distortion on there, it's going to be really difficult to hear it clearly, but the more distortion you add, the more clearly you'll start to hear these pinched harmonics. So there we just had a run from Rory that was that kind of thing. And he introduced a little bit of pinched harmonic in there as well. So straight and that kind of thing, really subtle. And like I said, you're going to have to listen out for this very clearly or closely to hear it clearly. That pinched harmonic sound rather than just a straight note. And that's the kind of thing that Rory could do. Just dot these pinched harmonics in there just at a drop of a hat, really. And it just transforms the sound of that little run because he plays it straight, then adds in a little bit of pinched harmonic. There's so much technique involved with this. Again, we've got more along the same kind of theme going on here with this solo. So when we are here, we've got that. The same kind of trills, same kind of rundowns, but this time we've taken an extra note on the B string out of our minor pentatonic shape 1. We want to throw in this second finger. Again, natural minor scale here. So we've got this like that. You just want to pedal between those two. Like that. And again, same principle there as I did in the extended pentatonic shape with the just stretching to give myself access to that natural minor note that's a little bit higher up, but it's just easier to play it with that trill rather than go and having to play it like that. You can then play it with hammer-ons and pull-offs if you just stretch up a little bit. Just to quickly jump in there, really cool bit of playing there from Rory, is working his way up. And just taps in with that right hand, gives it a little bit of vibrato, but he's just throwing this in because he feels like it. You really get the impression that he's just jamming away here with all of the little runs that he's doing in his shape. All that kind of stuff. And when he's throwing in that, it is so instinctive and natural, and he's not playing through a solo that he's previously rehearsed note for note and has been sitting there just trying to get it down perfectly. He's just playing with the knowledge that he has of the fretboard and just playing with feel. That is what really comes across with Rory's playing. Okay, so we've just had Jerry's bass solo. Check that out. Click on the link in the description below because he's picking the strings as well. So the alternate picking he's got going on, very much playing the bass guitar like a lead guitar. And just a quick mention of the video that I did with Donal Logue, which is on the channel here somewhere, where we talk about Jerry and Rory and country players as well. And I'll leave a link to that video at the end of this video, so you guys can click on it and watch that if you want to. But so much technique going on here from Jerry, and we then get Rory coming in with the chords, and he's having this that kind of groove. He's now just sitting it in that offbeat space, having a little bit more of a change in emphasis and keeping it interesting the whole time. Now, bringing that groove to a totally different place, and that's something that obviously Jerry's then playing off as well, getting a little bit of that bounce in there, a little bit of syncopation, because now we're emphasizing the off beats rather than just plodding along on the beats. So really cool stuff. Again, just something to throw in there, ad-libbing it, making it interesting. They probably have discussed this before they've got on stage, that they're going to change it, but then again, sometimes the top bands just do this live. They just go off on one and start jamming in front of you. And because of the relationship between the players on stage and their ability, they can just do that. And they can jam out a track for 10, 15, 20 minutes, an hour if they want to. But it's just great to see. Another bit that just happens so quickly, blink and you'll miss it, where Rory throws in a quick harmonic. And then he bends the string beyond the nut at the top of the guitar and pushes it all the way up so that he gets this. Those two notes that I'm playing with pinched harmonics here, but it means that we get that G and that C. But he's bending this first note beyond the nut. I can't do it because the tension on my strings is too much and the strings being pinned down. So it's going. And as you can hear, that I can get it to go up, but then it stops. Whereas Rory has got a little bit more freedom at the top there in order to ascend, but it's really quick. And like I said, blink and you'll miss it. You'll hear something going off. You might not know what it is, but that's what Rory's doing there. Again, just a really cool sound and something that he just throws in. It's something that I think is a really good idea, to start putting notes that you like from different scales or different modes just over the top of a basic shape, such as the minor pentatonic shape 1. When we've got this, if you're playing through, people will like that because it's so rooted in the key that you're playing in, and it's really no frills when you're talking about pentatonic shape 1. But if you're throwing in blues scale, if you want to bend to it as well, you can do. So that'll start to make it sound a little bit more bluesy. But if you're throwing in natural minor scale, we're now pushing the boundaries. We're going somewhere a little bit more interesting. And people aren't going to say, oh, that sounded bluesy or pentatonic-y. It's something totally different. But you haven't had to learn endless scales and modes. You've just remembered where those notes are when you're playing through your minor pentatonic. Kind of like that. Just dot them in. You don't want to go over the top with it. Rory is a great guy to look at when you're analysing the application of lead playing, but also other scales, other modes that he throws in there. And I wouldn't suggest going off and learning all of the modes and scales independently, as I've already said. That's just learning words of a language rather than how to speak the language. So you want to start throwing it in with stuff that you already feel confident with and just gradually throw them in there so that once you've got, say for example, that kind of thing, just just slide down 1 fret with that first finger, have a little hint towards that other scale, that other sound, and then get back into resolving to your root note of the chord. But always great to have a look at Rory, and keep an eye out for that video at the end of this video, myself and Donal Logue talking about Rory Gallagher as well as lots of other artists. And let me know what you guys think. Keep those suggestions coming in the comments below for future videos. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!